Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Tavern, and I teach in the Jewelry Metals program here at CCA. I want to remind you that we're recording. So if just keep that in mind. If you'd like to change the name on your screen, please go ahead and do that. And I'd like to welcome you to the second installment of the Spring 2024 BFA Senior Thesis Conversations. Senior Thesis Conversations are our chance to highlight the seniors who are about to graduate this semester. And today we are celebrating Benjamin Eckert in sculpture, Myrranda Mora in Individualized Studies, Yena in Jewelry and Metal Arts, Joy Kong in sculpture, Tuesday Iverson in Individualized Studies, and Leon Wan in Printmedia. Welcome to all of you. So the way this works is each student will present for 10 minutes, and then after each presentation, our guest respondent, Amy Trachtenberg, will have 10-minute conversation with the student, providing feedback and asking questions. Please note that we won't have time during this event for a public Q&A, but we encourage all of you to add comments and affirmations for the students in the Zoom chat. The transcript will be saved and given to all the students along with a recording of the meeting. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to welcome and introduce our guest respondent, Amy Trachtenberg. Hi. Amy Trachtenberg is a multidisciplinary artist whose work includes painting, collage, sculpture, installation, poetry, and public projects. Amy studied painting and art history at the Beaux Arts in Paris, where she also worked in the studio of fiber sculptor Sheila Hicks. Recent public projects in ceramic tiles are the facade design for the Young Institute on Mission Street in San Francisco and the passenger platform of the Milpitas BART station. This summer, Amy will exhibit new work in a solo show at Catherine Clark Gallery and in group shows at Anglin Trimble and the Contemporary Jewish Museum. Hi, Amy. Welcome. Hey. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your experience with all of our artists. I'm excited to meet you also. And so let's begin. Just as a reminder, we're going to keep these presentations to 20 minutes. I'm going to give each artist a verbal 2-minute warning. So I'll time you and I'm going to interrupt you when you have 2 minutes left. It will feel a little awkward, but it's just to keep things going. I apologize in advance for that interruption. And then Amy will have a chance to talk to each artist for 10 minutes. Again, I will give a 2-minute warning. And artists, please keep in mind that if you go over the 10-minute mark during your presentation, I'm just going to subtract those minutes from your conversation with Amy. Okay? So let's get started. I'd like to welcome Benjamin Eckert to present. Ben, when you have a moment, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Ben, and I'm a sculpture major. I was born on Eastern Long Island, New York, into a craft-centric family. My mother was a quilter, and my father was a carpenter and woodworker, and I grew up surrounded by artists and craftspeople, as well as those working in the building trades and other blue-collar fields, which had a big impact on the type of art that I make now. When I was 10 years old, my mother, younger brother, and I moved from New York to Vermont. Growing up between the two very distinct places instilled an appreciation in me for both urban and rural environments, as I loved where I was from, but also appreciated where I had moved to. The relationship between those two places has also influenced my art. I'm fascinated by building techniques and materials and how our built environment relates to the natural world. I'm inspired by infrastructure, systems, and process-based art. I also look back to my craft-based upbringing as an influence on my desire to blur the lines between art, craft, and design. When I was 13 years old, I became interested in taking found paper clips, straightening them, and then bending them into random right angles. I developed this as a way to keep my hands busy during lectures in school, and it became a type of compulsive activity that I ended up doing all the time. After a while, I started making them bigger out of wire and more complex. I was interested in the idea that each time I made one of these, it was unique and wouldn't be duplicated, even though I made hundreds of them over the years. Before coming to CCA, I was taking classes at the City College in Santa Barbara, where I started experimenting with ways to make my sculptures bigger by learning different types of processes and working with different materials like steel. As I did this, I became more interested in how the line, as a formal element, delineates shape, but also can become a shape, and I developed different styles of expressing that interest. This led to more variations on the theme of line and shape, which developed into new bodies of work. So now that I had these bodies of work and the formal elements of line and shape to play with, when I came to CCA in the fall of 2022 as a junior, I decided to experiment with scale and adding functional elements to my sculptures, such as lighting. And as I continued to try to make my wire pieces bigger, I started working with copper pipe, which turned out to be the perfect material. As I worked with this material, I became interested in infrastructure and how we rely so heavily on it to survive, yet it goes totally ignored and unappreciated. So I decided to create an inside-out fountain where the water element became secondary to the system of pipes that transport it. I also started noticing that the process of making some of my work was generating waste material that I didn't want to just throw away. So I started using the scrap material to make these paper lamps, which got me thinking about cities and the geometric shapes and grids that can be seen in them, and how that relates to the organic forms and randomness that we can see in nature, which got me thinking about the relationship between nature and the built environment. Also, around this time, I discovered an artist named Lisa Dillon, whose sculptural work investigates the relationship between nature and the built environment, and how that relationship affects humans. Her artist statement says, "I'm interested in examining the individual human experience within the built environment, forming a comparison with the experiences of our distant ancestors who made the natural world their home. My work aims to point out dividing lines between individuals that act as barriers to social interaction and community building, as well as divisions that separate the individual from nature. Many of my objects and participatory experiences function as a surrogate for a given user, easing discomfort and acting as a stopgap to temporarily fulfill the need for contact with one another and/or the natural world. The unattainable goal of replacing our communal experiences of nature with a man-made product is sardonically highlighted as works fail to live up to expectations." Her work really resonated with me because it has a sense of humor, it's designed to be interacted with, and it investigates topics and themes that I'm also interested in. So as I entered my senior year, I started focusing more on the conceptual side of my work, in this case, infrastructure, and also community and interdependence, things that humans also rely on for survival that also go largely unappreciated. The two fountains in this piece are interconnected so that each one draws water from its own basin and then empties into the other, relying on each other for the system to work. So all of the formal elements that I have been dealing with and the conceptual elements of infrastructure and community relationships blended with my thinking about the relationship between nature and the built environment when I came up with the idea for this installation. I wanted to create a space where people could enter and sit together that gave them the opportunity to think about human relationships with each other, as well as with the built environment and with the natural world, and how all of those things are connected. I think that moving forward, I'd like to work more on this scale, making larger installations and public sculpture. I'd like to continue exploring themes of infrastructure, community relationships, the built environment, and the natural world, and how all of these themes relate. Eventually, I'd like to start working with more industrial materials like concrete and steel, and I'd like to incorporate lighting and water elements into these pieces as well. As far as my plans for after CCA, I recently got into grad school at the Maryland Institute College of Art in the Reinhardt School of Sculpture program. So I'll be continuing my studies there. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about my work, and please feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Ben. Amy, if you want to unmute, you can begin the conversation.
I'm unmuted now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations, Ben. Very interesting to see the cross sections in your work. Many ideas that I relate to. I find it really fantastic that at this point you're thinking about coming out into the public realm with this, lifelong background of craft and design and making. I noticed in the presentation that there's like a beautiful color sense with the copper tones and the kind of verdigris coming through. And I think that color, though you didn't talk about it, is something that would be great to continue to investigate in your work. I could see all kinds of possibilities for you with really going for significant public art projects and working with lighting, with water, with the processes that make a city function are things that I think that you're already onto. I was thinking also about the architect Carlo Scarpa and wondering if that's someone who's ever been on your radar. He's an Italian, dead 20th century, very contemporary craftsman, architect, designer who did a lot of rehab of classic buildings throughout Italy, but also, and some of them became museums, and he would design the mounts for classical, very important sculpture and triptychs and paintings. Somebody that I would, definitely recommend that you look at. I also see crossovers with Richard Serra, who's obviously much in the news right now because of his recent passing and his early work as a plumber and how it really moved him into thinking about weight and gravity and how things materially function. So perhaps you already know that work very well. It also made me think about the Pompidou Center in Paris that opened the year that I moved to Paris, because the functions of that building are exposed on the exterior of the building, and it really was a very controversial thing, and then it became very beloved. So it feels like you're in very good shape to keep moving on the path that you've laid out. And I'm wondering if you have any questions about things that you're thinking about in intersecting your sculpture with functioning urban projects.
Actually, a lot of any potential questions, I think you kind of already answered, just in terms of, how I'm doing, where I'm going. So yeah, thank you very much. And the suggestions that you gave were great. I didn't realize that Richard Serra was a plumber or before he.
Yeah, you should. There's a lot of like a flood of obituaries right now. And in his early days, when he moved from San Francisco elsewhere than to New York, he actually worked with Philip Glass, and together they were plumbers.
Oh.
So yeah, the grounding in the utilitarian can take you very far.
Yeah, yeah.
Something that I really loved in your presentation of some of the earlier work with the copper coiled bent pieces is the projection of the shadows onto the wall. I think that that's something that is very interesting to utilize in sculptural work, which could be done, you know, obviously in the gallery, but also in the public realm. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, I definitely, that's kind of another element that I'm interested in. You know, where I have color, I have form, and then, you know, using the line and the shape and everything, but then also trying to use that element of shadow also.
Well, and I've sat on a lot of juries for public art, and something that would be very winning in your favor is the the use of lighting, because a lot of things, of course, don't light themselves, and that's a very strong element that often gets overlooked. While you might want to have also light projecting onto your pieces, the fact that they can be lit from within, and of course you'd have to think about how it would be maintained in the exterior difficult, challenging climates that work sometimes is presented in.
Mhm.
Those are really strong elements for someone just getting their BFA, I think. It's very impressive.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. No, that's another thing that it's good to hear, because that is something that I'm interested in pursuing, is incorporating more light elements, and then to hear that that's something that would be sort of beneficial to have on a presentation.
Yeah, I noticed that Taranay is on this Zoom. I don't know if you know her. She's a sculptor who I'm aware of her really strong public art that also has incorporated light and I think casting of shadows. So way to go. I think it's very strong and, you know, it's elegant. And I think that the line work has these beautiful allusions to a city, like the plan of a city grid. And you could, you know, like do research in specific locales and reproduce creek systems or street grids. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can take your interest in line by doing research and mapping, and there could be a beautiful simplified pictorial quality that's abstracted that with the tools that you have could be very winning, I think.
Great. Yeah, yeah, that's actually something that I was also interested in the future, as far as like site specificity, would be trying to incorporate, you know, some element of where the piece will live, you know, with the piece itself, so that it blends more with its surroundings, and it's, you know, more appropriate to the city that it's in, or, you know, the specific location.
Yeah. I mean, to that, I would say blending isn't necessarily the goal, but kind of being responsive and talking back to the specificity of a city's history, you know, many different kinds of histories that could be of interest to you. And already, you know, you're kind of thinking about that with the grid system that you seem to have used. Is that what you'll be showing in the BFA show?
Mhm.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
And can I come and see your shows? Are they going to be publicly presented?
Yeah, yeah. There's a show tonight, and then there's my show is next week, from 5 to 7, I think is the opening. So yeah, please feel free.
Which day?
Wednesday, next Wednesday, so April 10th.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, definitely look at Carlos Scarpa and read about Richard Serra, because they come from extremely strong backgrounds of craft and building and functionality, and they have really their own fingerprints and sensibilities all over their work, quite distinct.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Ben. I'd like to invite Myrranda to share your screen. And Myrranda, when you're done with your presentation, could you stop screen sharing so that when you have the conversation with Amy, we can see your face?
Yeah. All right. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Myrranda, Mora, individualized major, and I also have minor in technological practices. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to share my work with you all. So I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, but I'm now living in San Francisco. Being in the city, though, has made me really appreciate growing up in a place with such diverse landscapes, like the Oregon sand dunes on the coast, the lush forests surrounding pristine rivers, Central Oregon desert, and even in my backyard, the garden we have attracts really cool creatures. So I started CCA in fashion design, which paired really nicely with my minor. As I dove into ecology and climate impacts of production, I began to fully understand the importance of working and living in a sustainable and ethical way. I still enjoy fashion illustration, patterning, and sewing, but my values and interests pushed me towards the world of craft. Ancient craftsmanship and indigenous artisans are big inspirations for me and my work. I transitioned to individualized major and began to explore the intersections of sculpture and textiles using various mediums. In this knit garment, I used beads, felt, and embroidery thread to convey my idea of vulnerability. Metal was another medium I began to explore. Reach Higher uses beads, stones, and copper to form a collage-like texture representing this tree bark. Also, as I was starting to do more writing, I decided to write a poem that directed this piece. The poem speaks of resilience and is actually etched into the tree trunk like termite lines. Deconstructed, Reach Higher contains a tree bark arm cuff, root necklace, and fungus ring holder. Continuing to create in association with writing, I started this project, Women, which showcases writings from a diverse group of women and young girls speaking on their life experiences, stories, and hopes for the future. Reflecting on the writings, I created fabric imagery using scraps and hand-dyed fabrics and laid them out to tell a collective story. I will be continuing this work post-graduation, gathering further writing responses and materials in Mexico, where I'll be participating in an artist residency for jewelry metal and connecting with my relatives. So my BFA thesis exhibition is entitled Alar, which is an adjective to describe something resembling a wing or wing-like. I'll be combining mixed media works in jewelry and metal, textiles, and writing. Each piece has a different perspective of Alar, but work together to show some of the intersections between nature, resistance, and oneness. Independent Girl was made with recycled scrap fabric sewn together in a gradient of colors like a parakeet, a tropical bird, or a mango. In the installation of this dress, I'm envisioning a bird, a metal bird tag like this hanging off the dress hem where like the ankle would be. Bird tags were used to like track captured birds, mostly tropical, and recapture them if they escaped. In addition to the dress installation, I will also be showing a series of winged creature necklaces. The first one here, Kiss of Life, is an expression of Mother Earth and thus is primarily made with copper. The second necklace in the series is entitled Habla, which in the Aztec language Nahuatl means to transform or to change. I riveted together both casted and fabricated pieces to create this sort of depth. The same methods were used in the last of the series entitled Spring Day, but instead of riveting all the pieces, I made the flowers and the strawberry into screws, and I cut my own stones. To me, Spring Day is like the light at the end of the tunnel, representative of hope and rebirth. Eternity is the largest work that I'll be installing in my show. It's about 6 by 4 feet. And it's made with recycled fabrics, magazine pages, and a little bit of acrylic paint. It'll be displayed on a low pedestal around knee height so that as viewers walk around it, the perspective is like that of a bird flying over the world. And here is a close-up image of a small corner of that work. This mixed media piece, Living for the City, will be accompanied by a poem speaking on my expressions and observations being in San Francisco. And a small excerpt from this poem reads, "They say I have the means, but what am I without a body, without a mind, without a will, without the wind?" And the last piece in my exhibition is a mixed media sculpture made of wood and various metals that will be featuring symbols of motherhood and birth. The doorknob, like an invitation to enter a new world. My BFA exhibition opens April 24th at the CCA Campus Gallery. And many thanks to my professors, my family for their support, and the audience for listening. Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks, Myrranda.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really a like tremendous range in a body of work that is, quite cohesive. I think that the exploration between textile and metals and feathers and the inspiration from birds, it has a lot of grounding in Mexico, and it's very cool that you're going to do a residency there. I was thinking about the work of Carlos Villa. Have you seen that? Recently, there was just a big show of his at the Asian Art Museum, and there's a great catalog. He was a San Francisco-based artist, and I think he was at the Art Institute and did a lot of work with feathers and capes. And for you, I was imagining like how interesting it could be at some point if you dipped into collective work with a theater group and design costumes and sets, and like costumes that could become sets, like part of the set elements, because you have, such a sculptural way of working with textile. And there's a lot of rich symbolism in the moves that you're making and the things that you're drawing from. I thought it was really great how you transitioned away from your fashion major and moved into something that felt more ethically aligned for you. And yet you can still draw from your interest in fashion. I think all these different strands can just go on for the rest of your life, building into something, very particular to you. I also thought about Robert Rauschenberg's work. He also worked with dancers. I mean, are you familiar with his work?
No, no.
No. Okay, so he worked in collage and assemblage and sculpture and video and did a lot of collaborations with dance companies and musicians and did what I think are some of the most beautiful costumes for dancers and then video projection. So, I mean, there's a lot of places that I could imagine you'll go with these various things that you're looking into. And sometimes it's difficult for young artists to feel like they have to know which way they're going, but I would say you don't have to know yet. And you can take all these things and just keep developing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another artist that I've come to know recently who shows sometimes in San Francisco, Catherine Clark. And she's an indigenous artist named Marie Watt. And she works with collectives of mainly women, I think in the Pacific Northwest. I think that's where she's located. And they do like a lot of community sewing, and they use language on blankets that come from the community, and they use tons of sequins. And so it's work that requires a lot of hands, and they do it in a group. And it becomes like quite substantial sculptural pieces. Also, she works with iron pieces, giant pieces of construction iron. I'm forgetting the name of it. But her work is quite symbolic of kind of accomplishments of Native people and struggles of Native people. I would just really encourage you to keep writing and keep working across all these disciplines and learning more craft. Like maybe when you're in Mexico, you can learn about dyeing and weaving. There's another artist named Judith Shea, Shea, who did these very sculptural kind of totemic female forms in textile, like dresses, but they're very sculptural. They kind of remind me of Greek statues, marble statues that are carved. But I believe all of her work is with textile, and they seem very timeless. And I think that way that you're going into different histories and pulling iconography from Mexican history and other histories is, it's just a very good, strong route to build on.
Thank you.
Yeah. I liked the way you used the lines that the termites ate through the wood as a pattern. And I think that if you get more into studies of the natural world, it's just like endless amounts of patterns to draw from with fungus, with moss, with bark. I mean, you already know that, as well as with wings.
Yeah.
So that seems like a path you're already deeply going into. And really from your earliest pieces, which I think were related to vulnerability, is that right, that you showed us? The combination of materials is really beautiful with the look like felted wool and beading. So I think I would just say just keep going for your interest in a variety of materials. And don't worry about kind of containing it too quickly.
Yeah, in Oaxaca, I'm going to Oaxaca in Mexico. So there's definitely going to be a lot of interesting craftsmanship there with textiles that I'm excited for.
there's you know about the weaving village, Teotitlan del Valle. So yeah, that's where I learned about cochineal and how they grow the bushes that the cochineal bugs go onto and gather them and crush them and make the best red dye. That'll be fantastic. Should make all the connections. There's a lot of paper making there. Yeah, that'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't think so. Yeah, thank you. I have a lot of good artists to look up now.
Yeah, great. Well, I look forward to seeing more.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Myrranda. I'd like to invite Yena Wei to give her presentation.
Okay,
Great.
welcome to my BFA Thesis Conversation. My name is Yena. Usually, people just call me Nana because I feel that Yena is more formal, so I choose to use Yena in this BFA Thesis Conversation and the exhibition. I grew up in Xuzhou, China, a city with beautiful view and many delicious food. This environment instilled in me a deep love of food and inspired my early undergraduate works, which mainly focuses on the landscape and nature. And however, it wasn't until later that I started infusing emotions as an inspiration into my work. And after at San Francisco, I found myself gradually reflecting my passion for crafts in my artwork under the guidance of professors. I began to devote into the study and research of various technique and materials. Broaden my artistic horizon, and I found myself increasingly drawn to female-centric topic after immersing myself in literature and media. This led me to develop a big interest in exploring the plight of women in my art. This bracelet is the first wearable mental work I made at CCA. It's called the Oakland Memory, and I was inspired by the Oakland campus. I used copper to create a collage of the architectural photo of the Oakland campus. The reliquary for my cat to keep his blood and hair still alive, but my location prevent me from the stay with him, so I choose to remember and fight against the bad mood caused by the distance in this way. And this shadowing was made in the fall of 2022. At that time, I was very chaotic stage, and at the same time, I was eager to exploring the craftsmanship and techniques and technology of jewelry and mental art. So I made a heart using part of the hollow technique and color it with combination of gesso and color pencil. The lotus is a gift I prepared for my mom. She believed in Buddhism, so I made a piece for her that can hold candle and incense at the same time. This ring was made for my classmate Wei Yizhang, and his request was for Beijing because Beijing is a famous city that have most of the Chinese culture. I choose to use the Forbidden City in Beijing as an inspiration. The texture and pattern on this ring came from the leaves of the roof of the Forbidden City. It's inlaid with the red carnelian stone that represent the red wall of the Forbidden City, and through a symmetrical design, which looks very like a piece of the stone line. At the same time, the cutting mark of the ring shows the square architectural structure of the Forbidden City. And the last one is self-fitting. I made in the fall of 2022 about looking back on my year of truly taking care of myself on my own. I obtained the shape by recording my movement in San Francisco and over the past year in the software, and use texture to show the motley road that can have been trodden on. The part of my senior project, A Woman Trembling. I wrote a poem about resilience as a symbol of liberation, inspired by the unspoken plight of women. Discovering the Jiangyong Nü Shu is a secret traditional female creative text. Also gave me a powerful energy, promoting me to create my own series of mysterious writing through curvy, elusive thoughts. And I dance in front of the camera to express my emotion using the unusual poses to curving my inner fear and anger. I use the combination of the female body structure and text structure to create my art jewelry. The trembling one is made of copper sheet as a base and hammering into the shape of the female body through hollow wear technique, and is hidden multiple times with more stable blue and green enamel. The silhouette obtained by the text structure also crochet the cotton yarn, and also allowing the work to spread throughout the body. The trembling tool is also of copper sheet as a base, using hollow wear technique to hammer out my hand and using enamel to cover them. Cotton yarn was also used to weave the net within the circle as a further decoration. The trembling 3 is a base cast by fine silver, and the core responding a letter of the trembling in a secret text I made are engraved in it, filling with enamel and cover multiple times. And for the exhibition, through my work, I want people really feel for what women go through. Each piece is like a little reminder of the ups and downs they deal with, inviting everyone to think about and connect with those feelings that might not always get noticed in our society. And finally, big thank you to all my professors, especially my first professors, Marilyn, for bringing me to Mental Art, and our chair of the Mental Art program, Curtis. Thank you for further teaching me more techniques and creative method. We also have very helpful studio manager, Raz. Thank you for your help. Finally, there are two professors from the senior project, Olivia and Amy. Thank you for helping and guiding us to complete so many works.
Wow. I really want to see these, and I would love to touch them, which probably is okay. I don't know. Congratulations. I'm really fascinated by your references to things in China that I know a little bit about, but I would love to know more about. And I'm interested, like the use of carnelian red for the reference to the Forbidden City, in wondering like if red has a certain symbolism related to being forbidden in that culture. That's one question I had.
Actually, during I made that piece, me and we more like to just use the most easy things to show what the Beijing is like. So we choose the Forbidden City, and the red is the most part of the Forbidden City, I think, because all the walls are red. Yeah. So it's kind of like a obviously way to show people the Forbidden City in that way.
But the color red, does it have a meaning that you know of? Does it have a like a personality, or are there ideas about the color red that you know about?
Actually, in Chinese culture, the red mostly talk about the lucky and the royal things.
Red, okay, good to know. I was thinking for you to look at some surrealist artists. The piece that really struck me was the female body that was a hard material, and then almost like a mermaid, where her bottom was the crocheted piece. There was something like very surreal, but also naturalistic, kind of like woman into fish. Like the crochet seemed like scales of a fish. And I wondered if you ever looked at the work of like Max Ernst or Man Ray. They worked in, so anyhow, those are two artists that I think would be interesting for you to look at. Also, actually, a woman artist, Dorothea Tanning, who was married to Max Ernst, but very strong artist in her own right, who looked at the female body and gave it a lot of power, and was really kind of fighting against those same male stereotyping of women, and women being like next to men as the wife, but having their own power. Yeah, there's like, for someone that's working in jewelry and metalcraft, is a lot of emotion in your work. And that's kind of surprising to me and really beautiful. I'm not familiar with seeing that as part of many people's work in jewelry. So kind of like Myrranda, I think that you should keep exploring all of these different materials and histories. I think that it was very interesting. You showed us one slide of images of you dancing, and there were still shots, and it seems like something that could be very interesting to further explore, because the shapes that your body made looked like an alphabet, you know, and the way that you set it up in a grid, it felt like we could almost read what you were dancing. And perhaps that's something you could make in metal and in other materials. I think that's a really interesting line to keep looking at. What else? Oh, there was that piece that was like a ring, and it reminded me of the bird's nest at the Beijing Olympics. Right, that stadium. Did you think of that at all?
Seems like a little bit same.
Yeah.
Actually, when I make that, I didn't think of that because the shape is from my footprint from that software. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, it seems like with also thinking about what you made for your mother and the Buddhist symbolism of the lotus, like that's such a long, rich history to keep exploring all the ways that Buddhism represents belief systems, both in abstraction and in figurative narrative forms, and in so many different materials, in metal work and in painting, painting on textile.
Less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Food. You talked about being very interested in food in the beginning. And I think that kind of the natural forms that from which we make food are also like quite interesting for you to explore. But I just love like how you've taken the disciplines that you've learned and combined them with these personal stories and worked out being in California and probably away from your family and your friends, and take that vulnerability and make some very powerful, strong works. Congratulations.
Thank you, Nana, and thank you, Amy. Now I'd like to welcome Joy Kong.
Hello. Let me share my screen. Hi, my name is Joy. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hi, my name is Joy Kong. I'm a sculpture major, also studying history of art and visual culture as my minor. So where I come from, I grew up in many different places, and first I was born in Korea, and then I moved to Australia to finish my preschool and half of my middle school in Canada, back in Korea for a bit, and then a boarding school in New York, and came to San Francisco for my college. And here are some images growing up. And my key concepts of my artworks are basically mostly people. I like body communications, feeling, memories, and stories. And some struggles, like me making my pieces, are in a way of like comforting myself and putting bandage on the scars or all the struggles that I've had in the past. And then my past, my childhood, and unique memories. And my present days, my interest, which include like different places, like online, unique objects and found materials, along with feedbacks, how people comment on my pieces means a lot to me. And some of the artists that I admire and get inspired from, first artist is Sue Griggs, and she's a sculpture artist. She also makes pieces that are related to what she feels connected to. The first piece is like related to nature. And the second and third pieces, Three of Us and Mini Totems, are the ways how she sculpted her friends and the people she's met, and some of who she means a lot in her artistic ways. The other artist is Stephen Cole. I love the way he connects with his pieces, the way he views art, and how he calls sculpting as a journey. And I inspire his works, how he works with like unique materials to come out with this very vivid color palette, and the way the use of like human body in a sculpture is very interesting as well. This is one of my oldest pieces, which is my piece Mom 2020. And it's made out of mixed media, paper clay, watercolor, wood, and wire, and traditional rice paper. As my mom like talks about her struggles, she always represents it as a whole, and we need to patch them as the time passes. We can't leave it empty. And she suffered a lot raising me and my little brother in a country where she doesn't speak the language English, and she has suffered a lot from us. So during this piece, I represented the struggles that she had to hold on to, which is her figure in the middle with the wonky, weird shaped sculpture, which the struggle connects to me, who also patches her hole as well. So it's like a loop of like the problems and healing and struggles at the same time. And the other piece was an insomnia. And during the time of pandemic, I have struggled a lot with my feelings. Like my big happiness is like being out there socially and just experimenting and just living. But during the pandemic, like, oh, what I was is basically being kind of trapped in a room. And as an overthinker, like I went through a lot of different emotions and like sad, angry, and looking back and just thinking about the future. It was kind of scary just being there. And I was usually like under my blanket and just having all these thoughts. So I wanted to represent that through my sculpture. So I do like show the struggles like in this piece, but also the blanket was like a protection in a way, like my comfort space as well. So it's also mix of both in this piece. And this piece is step by step, and it is a casted piece of work that I painted with watercolor, it's plaster casting. And it's about how hard like people like run with their feet to like get to places and get their things done. And there's not much credits on how much sometimes like we forget how much we've done for our accomplishments. And I wanted to represent that and also photograph them like in different locations as well. I've been getting into ceramics a lot, and this is self-portrait in a way. And I've added it started with adding myself consciousness about how the way I looked. I did go through some racism as I was young, and they were talking about like a sharp monolith eyes and like over bumpy nose and and as I grew up, I started loving them and like decided to put it in the piece. And the reason why I make them into a bottle, there are a lot of things that I've been bottling up as I grew up and not really able to represent or speak up to myself, and being able to make that through the piece into something that's beautiful, that I find beautiful, was something that I used to like hate so much, became like the big signature portrait of the sculptural faces that I continue to make. I also have done some metal pieces. These are all made out of scrap pieces, and the piece travel. This piece is actually very heavy, and I moved around a lot, and I'm definitely not like a big fan of it all the time. And it feels like there's a lot of weight on me for me to settle at a different place. And by the time I get settled, move again. So kind of wanted to add that complication in this piece, as like I made like a little carry-on bag with the scrap metal pieces, and the pearl stop is like a little resting place, like a bust stop that I made for myself, including my birthstones pearl and the shell as like a little protection as well. This semester has been an experimental semester. Taking the casting courses, I was able to sculpt more of the faces and work with resin, and also work with how to make negative space castings, and also made edible sculpture. So the pearls and the fingers are like white chocolate, and the frosting decorations are fully edible. And it was an interesting experimental pieces for me. This is the work that I'm currently working on. It's one of the largest pieces that I'm working on. It is about 4 foot tall, and it is a piece about me and my cousin playing cat's cradle. She has passed away when I was 19, and I never really was able to have a closure with her. And she has become like, was my like role model and everything. She's the one who taught me how to tie my hair up and every small little thing. So I left empty spaces to live little trinkets and the gifts that I have received from her after she passed away. And it's a memorial piece and a closure piece in a way for me to say goodbye to her, since I was never able to make it to her funeral since I was so far away. But I'm excited to finish this piece and add it to my senior exhibition. And what's going on? I have been accepted to MFA in Museum Studies at NYU for a curatorial and museum studies program. And I'm interested in getting further into education field and art. I would love to like share and motivate other artists as I get older, and also be able to be in an environment where I could work with different artists and also clients as well. And I'm excited to graduate and for my future experiences and my next journey as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Wow, very intense. Think I'll start with the last piece because I was just in Japan for the first time and I didn't see anything that looked like that, but just thinking about it being like a memorial piece for your beloved cousin, it's almost like you created a temple, like it's almost like a small building or it's a shrine. And I think it's really, really amazing idea. And it'll be interesting to see what you put inside of it. Tell me about the color pink. Why did you choose that color?
The color pink. Pink is like, if I think of a dream, it's always like pink and blue. It's definitely one of my favorite colors as well. And when the sky turns pink, like during the sunset, it feels unreal. Like pink is a color that feels unreal for me in a way. It's like majestic and also like very dreamy in a way. And a lot of my pieces do have some tint of pink for like the cheeks. And it's also like very lively and I don't know, the color pink just kind of it's like a comforting color for me in a way. And also kind of separates the reality and the art. Definitely. Yeah.
It does occur in nature though. So it does seem like a kind of a fantasy color on one hand, and also it is, I agree with you that it's very surprising when it shows up. We kind of expect it in flowers, but when we see it in trees and in the sky, it is pretty magical. And so you talked a few times about your emotions being bottled up. And I thought it was very interesting that you made several vessels with faces. And I think that's a really interesting translation of your feelings into sculpture, taking a form like a bottle or a vessel or a vase. I did think of a particular artist. She's not that well known, but she was very unusual because she made very large figure sculptures that were carved in wood and beautifully painted. And her name is, she just has one name. It's Marisol, Marisol. And you don't see her work in a lot of places, but when it shows up, it's extremely powerful work. And the other kind of work I thought about in relation to what you showed us is ancient Greek work, sculpture from the Cycladic period and the Cycladic era, because they look really modern, but they're way before classical Greek sculptures. They're kind of minimalist figures and carved out of stone usually, but also cast in bronze. So that's something I would encourage you to check out because they're also kind of playful and they come in different scales. And then there was a piece you did with pearls as a sign of protection. I think your symbolism is really, like your ability to tap into symbolism is very interesting. And I think that when you are away from like your people, it can be a very lonely place, but it really allows you to go very deep because of that loneliness into things that, you know, really connect. And I think that you've done that you articulated that very strongly in your presentation, like talking about holes and patching the holes, like between your mother and you. That's very moving. Also, I think in the beginning you said something about putting a bandage on the wound or on the hole. And I'm thinking maybe like flip that and like open it up instead of covering it up. and see what that looks like. Not just thinking of it as just like blood spilling out, but like what is that story of that hurt? And then the edible stuff, you didn't spend too much time on that, but is that something that like making temporary works that could be eaten, say during a show, like say you were curating a show and artists had a opportunity to make work that could be passed around and eaten?
Yeah, my friends actually ate all my pieces after my critique that day, and it was interesting. And yeah,
I
it
mean,
is something.
something we haven't talked about with anybody else's work, but since you're going into museum studies, is the idea of work that's ephemeral, that's not lasting, that is just maybe there for the, the moment. So the edible art made me think of that. Yeah, I'm really struck by the last piece. And is that what's going to be in your show? The large pink?
It's
What are you thinking about making to put in that basin?
in the space. I want to put. There's this white flowers for funeral that we put. Definitely want to include that. Like I wasn't able to put that there for her. And also I want to put like I received a lot of her trinkets. Like we were big trinket fans. Like her little collections and sculptures she collected, the favorite sandals that I gifted her. And I have like a little box full of her things in my and I'm always scared to kind of open it because sometimes I never really was present when it was happening. I was in New York and everything was through phone call and it just felt unreal. And sometimes like opening it feels like I don't know, it's still like I don't know how to like process it again. It's just like a big hole that I don't really want to get opened up in a way. So yeah,
But you are going there because you made
yeah.
these big pieces.
Yeah.
I think it's really brave, and I think it's probably very healing, and just really like those are beautiful pieces. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
also, I thought your cast feet were amazing.
Thank you so much.
Minutes.
Okay, the cast feet, like just the idea, like the size of them and the way you photographed them was really very, very strong. And the painting on the plaster is great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something very interesting to pursue. And it evokes so many different things about, like, it doesn't feel like death. It feels like loss or displacement or dislocation. It doesn't feel like amputation. So that's what's the name of that? Anyhow, it doesn't really remind me of anybody. It's quite interesting.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Tuesday Iverson.
I'm nervous about the CCA Wi-Fi right now, but I'm gonna just proceed. Everything's a little choppy for me. Okay. Do you guys see the pop-up on there?
No, we just see you.
Okay, it's just the slide.
No, we just see you right now.
Amy, who is the next person? We can continue with the next person, and Tuesday you can move somewhere else in campus to have a better connection.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Does that sound okay, Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's fine.
Okay, Leon? Would
Hi.
you, hi, we're gonna move the order a little bit and have you go so Tuesday can get some better Wi-Fi. If
Okay,
you don't mind starting your presentation,
of course.
great.
Okay, how does this look?
Looks great.
All right. Hello, my name is Leon Wan, and I am an individualized major with a focus in print, sculpture, and collage, as well as a minor in writing and literature. I currently reside in Oakland, California, and have been here for about 3 years now. While art school was the main thing that brought me out here, I wanted to move out of Colorado, where I was born and raised. I have a fondness for cooking, cinema, reading, and my cats, Momo and Tai, among other things. My brother introduced me to art. As a child, I would watch over his shoulder while he drew cartoons, and he had a large influence on me. And to this day, he still does. I decided to follow him when he told me he wanted to pursue a career in the arts. But my true interest in art didn't develop then. I thought I wanted to be an artist. I thought I loved art for many years, up until I was about 20. I convinced myself of this identity of wanting to be an artist. I practiced drawing simply because of this identity I developed. Between 19 to 23, I was dealing with many personal issues, and the only consistent thing that I did was attend weekly figure drawing sessions. It was the most tangible thing I had at the time and gave me something to look forward to. In 2021, I got into CCA for animation, and everything sort of collapsed due to the realization that it might not be what I wanted to do. I was very lost for a while, and after years of clinging to the goal of being an artist, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in school. I took a leave of absence and just worked for a while in a fine dining kitchen. I thought that I was taking a break, but it wasn't until I got badly burned on the side of my torso that I took the time to stop and reflect. During my recovery, I had time to think about myself and my goals, and I realized that I truly did want to pursue art and make a career out of it. I want to make art not just because of some external factor like proving something to others. I create art because I enjoy the space that I create for myself. In this space, I feel free to make my own narrative. One of my most recent impactful influences has been Martin Wong. I tend to gravitate towards Asian American artists who not only seek to share their experiences, but tell a story of a life that balances being Asian American in modern day America. Due to my personal lived experience as an Asian American growing up in a white dominated space out in Colorado, I've thought a lot about my identity and how it shaped me as a person, especially in the context of where I came from and where I am now. Martin Wong, being a gay, disabled, Chino Latino artist, dealt with and discussed many of the same questions I have now and much more. In Martin Wong's A1, a fictional urban building is erected in front of a burning horizon, nestled between a night sky filled with constellations in the background and symbols representing hands, creating a message in the foreground. This painting brings in so many elements of Wong's life. The hands represent Wong's connections to having to learn ASL as a child, and the brick building encapsulating his visions of New York while he lived there. The series of monotypes was created in screen printing too. It was my first attempt at a monotype and started my interest in working on intuition and spontaneity. Note the sporadic placement of the ground, as well as the willingness to repeat the same image in random locations throughout the prints. Worn out from precision and accuracy, I chose to print this series with no measurements and registration, the result of it being prints that were made purely with intuition and lack of forethought. This print represents the moment I decided to utilize screen printing as a material rather than a piece. Taking two of the same prints, I spliced them together, creating a landscape that stutters in its continuity. The break and repetition of images nods towards the feelings that I underwent during my torso injury. The hand-drawn elements were a vehicle for me to insert my immediate feelings onto the paper. The form of the figure above is held together by loose, coarse scribbles, and it only becomes identifiable enough to let you know that it is in pain. Since venturing into collage and this emphasis on spontaneity, I have often gone back into animation, carrying the elements I have learned in printmaking into moving pictures. Nothing in this animation was planned beforehand. I took whatever scraps I could find within found magazines and attempted to create a story with it. I believe the abstract imagery of my animations find themselves in conversation with my prints. By having impulse be my main theme among different elements, I give them multiple forms to tell my stories. With what I've learned in my time at CCA, I'm hoping to continue my practice by further exploring printmaking, animation, and sculpture as a whole. I trust that over time, my experience and methods of storytelling will evolve along with my art. I'm currently seeking internship opportunities around San Francisco as an art handler / preparator. I haven't thought about any other trajectories within art for myself yet. As for equipment, until I can get my hands on proper ones, I'm looking around at shared printmaking spaces like Max's Garage in Berkeley. Here's my contact information. I do not have a website yet, but I'm hoping to have one up before this coming summer. But before I end, I would like to make a few thank yous. Thank you to my mom and dad for your support. I know it's hard for you guys to understand what I'm doing, but I'm grateful that you guys believe in me. Thank you to Dion, my brother, for being such an important role model in my life and always having my back at every turn. Thank you to Layla Weaver and Michael Washington, two professors who opened my eyes to critical race theory, Black American politics, and ultimately led to the realization of how closely they tie to Asian American politics. Thank you to Taro Hattori for being so encouraging of me and allowing me to explore my space in the roughest states. And finally, thank you to Christina Lasala. You realize that we had a strong connection far before I did. You have undoubtedly the largest impact on my art and art practice. You taught me to not fear any part of my mind, and you're the reason I didn't drop out of school. I didn't know what I would have done without you. I'm so grateful for all these amazing people and how they have molded me into the person I am today. And thank you all very much for coming to my conversation.
Thanks, Leon.
Wow. It's very intense work. And yeah, I just want to see more. I think that you're knowing that intuitively composing is like a really good path for you is great to see. I think it's really hard when you have all these techniques available to be spontaneous and to trust your intuition. And I really love the looseness of how you're printing and combining, weird different types of imagery. I think the connection to your injury is really strong, like combining that very good drawing, like the charcoal drawing, with the other misprints or marks that came in the process. Feels like a very coherent piece to me from things that are in a way like not that legible. And I think it builds together. And I mean, you really can't direct anybody to do this. They just have to trust their way in going into it. So I like seeing that. I also think that monotype is an incredibly free way to print. And personally, I gather a lot of things from the world and cut them up and dissect them and print with them. Whereas I used to make collage with them, I use them as a means to print from the world or to imprint, like a direct printing process. And it feels like all the different things that you're looking at in terms of your identity and ways to feel personally liberated, that monotype is just a fantastic means. We didn't see a lot of the animation, but I think that the crossover between what we did see and the printmaking is very seamless. And you know, you can keep including both of them in all of the work. I think it'd
Thank
be
you.
very interesting if you do work as an art handler. I often suggest that to younger artists because I think that the exposure to studios, to venues for showing, to how to actually handle so many different kinds of mediums is really like a very good school. You said something, you said something about something was stuttering in its continuity. And that seemed very much in sync with the way the prints looked to me, that you weren't trying to classically resolve them, but they still are very coherent. And I think that's a really interesting goal because a lot of times artists are very influenced by design in a kind of more rational way of cohering and resolving, but that's not right for everybody. So, and then another thing, you mentioned Leila Weaver, and I met her when we were residents at the same time at Kala. And, you know, Kala is a great printmaking studio. And
Yeah.
I would encourage you to apply for a residency there.
Yeah, that's great.
And just look around for stray presses to experiment with. I think it's a really good, it's such a freeing medium. I mean, there's people like Annie Albers, who's and Ruth Asawa. Are you familiar with Ruth Asawa's prints or her
Yes, I
sculpture?
haven't.
She's known as a sculptor, but she got very into printmaking at one point.
Yes, yeah, I am familiar. I had to search that for a second.
Yeah. So there's quite a few women, like it was really like a lot of men doing printmaking, but there's something, well, anyhow, there's many ways to do it. And there's kind of the really strict, fine classical folks that keep everything extremely well registered. And then there's the people that are just like, I print with paint. I don't use ink because ink is too expensive. And I like to work really big on canvas and crush things and run them through the press. And when I was at Kala, people were walking by and saying like, are those prints? Just because it can be, you can really let it be sculptural.
Yeah, definitely.
So we didn't get to see or hear much of the writing, but I could hear it in the way you talk. And so I would also just encourage you to keep thinking and taking notes from all those sources.
Yeah, I've been working on integration. I was actually a bit worried about having writing in for the sake of time within the conversation. And the lack of animation was because of my lack of familiarity with PowerPoint, actually.
I'm
But
with you there.
2 minutes.
I'll have some of my writing and more of my animation available at my show coming next week.
Okay, great. Is the show at Timken Hall or where is the show going to be?
Um,
On the campus.
it is on it's on campus. It's a little bit to the side by the Arch art store. That's
Yeah, I know where that is.
away.
Well, someone
Okay,
could
that's the
send
best.
me an address of where to go.
Okay,
But yeah, you have a lot of beautiful strands to go on forward. And I'm really interested to see where it goes.
thank you.
Congratulations. It's very strong.
Thank you. Myrranda. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon. Thanks, Amy. Tuesday, are you in a better spot?
I switched to a hotspot.
Okay,
So
that seems a little.
we're gonna let's see. doesn't seem different in any other part of the school, unfortunately. For me, my laptop's a little old, but let's see. Just to tell you what's going on, I have to go into my settings and allow screen recording access to present. It won't let me present it until I do that. So
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I never had this problem before.
Yeah, maybe we'll check to help you.
On Tuesday, I think you should give the permission from your system preference.
Okay. Um,
And go to the accessibility.
I put the password in and it's showing a little loading thing. This is my nightmare.
It's okay. These kinds of things, they happen.
Honestly, I feel like the best thing for me to do is go to the library and log into Zoom on a Mac there and just like do it from in there. Is that something that I can do? Because this is not loading. It's like not going through.
Amy, do we have any other
It's just showing the
students?
spinning circle.
No,
Or-
this is the last person. Could we move Tuesday to next week? And maybe that would be, and that's one more person for next week, but then at least that relieves the pressure and Tuesday can set up in a stronger connection zone next time.
Yeah, that would be okay.
Okay.
Is there a zone? Is there a zone that's known to have stronger connection? I'm not aware of one.
My connection
can
here in
move
this
now.
classroom
I
is
don't-
pretty good. You could come here. You
How
sure?
was my connection when I was giving the presentation?
Tuesday, you could also have someone share the presentation for you, though I'm not exactly sure how that will work.
Well, I'm right near Leon, so maybe I can.
You can, yeah.
you guys-
Can you share your presentation with Leon and Leon can share it with us?
All right.
Great.
Thank you for your patience with this.
If my connection was pretty good, you can just come into the studio space too.
I'm coming
Or,
right over. I'm just gonna send you my presentation right now.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks.
All right.
Leon for helping.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't understand. Okay.
Tuesday, please unmute yourself if you're talking. Okay. I think you should need the Leon computer entirely. Yeah.
So Tuesday's going to share their link with me, and then they're going to present on my computer.
Great.
Can I?
Okay, we got it figured out. So Tuesday's gonna present on my computer.
Great. Thank you.
Just make sure. Oops, sorry. That's how I figured it out. No. Cool. All right. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, hi. My name is Tuesday. I'm an Individualized Studies major. And I've been living in San Francisco for like 5 years now. I grew up in outside of Sacramento on the American River, in old gold mining country. And I collected as a kid a lot of like the old scrap metal around where I grew up, from the gold mining, and kept it in my backyard, which, as you can imagine, my mom didn't like very much, but it was just one of many different collections that I kept throughout childhood. And as an adult, I've realized that collecting is my oldest habit that I have, and I've had sort of random affinities for certain objects and that crow-like tendency to collect them for as long as I can remember. And it's become a driving force behind the work that I make, and also the way that I just experience the world and synthesize the world. When I started art school, I was a painter mostly, and I started to realize how much inspiration I got from learning new techniques and understanding new materials and combining all of them. And my creative energy kind of took off in the sculptural realm a couple years ago. And um, so I like to combine painting with sculpture and ceramic and glass and basically as much stuff as I could fit in one thing. And I'm very invested visually in my like immediate surroundings, my home, the city. I love San Francisco. I make a lot of art about San Francisco. And the habits that I have in my daily life and the tools that help me with those habits. For example, my car, which I also make a lot of art about. Another thing that I feel is significant about my childhood is that I went to Waldorf school my whole life, and at Waldorf school, it was like art was sort of the process through which we learned about everything, like math and science and not just, like humanities. And I feel like that's been so ingrained in me that that's kind of where my inspiration comes from, is using art to learn about myself and learn about the world and learn about how to exist in it. So those are some of my less specific influences. And then I wanted to name a few artists as well. First one is Timo Fowler. They combine stained glass with sort of industrial framework to bring stained glass into more of a sculptural realm. Second person is actually also Martin Wong, like Leon. This is one of my favorite paintings ever, and I like looking at his work because I feel like connected to him in that he talks a lot about his relationship to New York, and I feel like I'm talking a lot about my relationship to San Francisco. And then third is Philip Guston. I pretty much just love everything that he's ever made. And I don't know if his influence really shows through in my work, but I've definitely been affected by his work aesthetically. So I'm gonna go kind of chronologically. This is one of the first sculptures I made when I came to CCA. It is a mannequin that I chopped into 5 pieces and painted. And this was sort of at the beginning of my like sculptural material explorations. So this was another one. I started getting into stained glass and nobody really taught me how to do it. So I kind of just didn't put things together the way that generally stained glass pieces go. And I ended up really liking it. So I kept on doing it and adding in found objects. I have a huge collection of smashed cans, like this one on the left. And I do a little bit of mosaic work as well. And that's another smashed can there. I started getting back into ceramics around this time, and the image on the left is a little sidewalk drain. They're all over San Francisco. I like to pick them up and paint them and put them back. So I'm kind of obsessed with these, and I don't have time to get into it, but the history and like the relationship they have to the history of San Francisco is really, really interesting if you want to look it up. But there's different hole patterns, and I collect them, and I decided to make a large ceramic piece representing one of them with a lot of collaged imagery. I guess it's about San Francisco. I mean, there's a Muni stop. It's kind of like foreshadowing a lot of my other work, weirdly. But yeah. And this, I wish I had a better picture of, but it's a self-portrait of me, and then the hair is a little spout for a teapot, and the ear comes out, and you can pour stuff in, and then you hold it, of course, with my neck bone. This is my car, Phoebe. I thought that I was gonna lose my car like last year, and I got really, really sad and made this piece, and it was just supposed to be therapeutic for me, but a lot of people ended up liking it. So it's kind of started a whole new thing where I purposely deepened my obsession with my car in order to get more art out of it. And this is just kind of like a random project I worked on this semester. Actually, I don't have anything to say about that. This is an in-progress project. It's going to probably take a while, but I decided to make a hood ornament for every day of the year for my car out of ceramic. So these are all like hood ornament size, I don't know, 3 inches, 4 inches. And I have some close-up pictures of them. These pieces are all complete, but I'm going to keep adding on for a long time, probably. And I want to take these and do a photo shoot of each one in my car, on my car. And then a lot of my work is kind of in progress for my show. First, well, this I'm in the progress of remaking, but it's a ceramic parking meter with a light bulb inside, and then stained glass screens and buttons and everything, and then a tin can pole. And I just wasn't super happy with the craftsmanship on it, so I have to remake it because I don't like looking at it. But I love the idea.
2 more minutes.
Okay. And this is the beginnings of a quilt that kind of goes with the last piece. It's not been quilted yet. This is just the top layer. This is an in progress painting. Very like kind of beginning stages, but this is on my drive to school every day. I see this melted parking sign and I'm just obsessed with it. So I'm doing a painting of it. And this is the main thing I'm working on right now, which is a full-size Muni stop. And this panel, it's kind of hard to tell because it's all in pieces and it's very much not done, but this picture on the right is a old window that I'm going to turn into stained glass, and that'll be like the advertisement that goes right here. And then I have a whole ceramic map that I made, and these are the legs that I'm going to do. I'm doing all mirror mosaic, so it looks like metal. And then somehow making a squiggle, TBD. It's kind of, at first it felt like a stroke of genius, and now it's kind of feeling like a curse, but I'm really excited to see it come together, hopefully soon. And then that's me working in my studio at SFAI before I transferred. Right now I have a piece in the SFAI faculty, staff, and alumni show at the Museum of Northern California in Chico. And I think that'll be up until like mid-May. And then I'm extremely excited. One of my teachers is curating a show at the Bolinas Museum and asked if I could put this piece in the show. So that is opening on the 13th. And it's a group show. And then, yeah, I want to work with kids. I used to be a painting teacher for kids, and I really want to work with kids again while I figure out kind of what it is I'm going to do. I'm applying for a couple residencies, one in Slab City and then the ecology one. And I might go to grad school. We'll see. Thank you so much for bearing with me, the technological issues, and for coming to my talk. And a special thank you to the staff and faculty in the ceramics and sculpture department. I don't think I could have done anything I just showed without them. So, and shout out to my parents and my big brother.
Wow. Very cool. I appreciate the humor, of which I have almost none ever in my work, but I really want to see the Muni bus stop and how you create the wiggle on top. That seems like a great challenge materially also. It seems like a very beloved component in the city. And I also loved hearing how much you can say that you love San Francisco. That's refreshing. Thank you for that. I know a lot of kids that went through Waldorf, and I haven't seen hardly anybody come out with as quirky work as you do. So that's really great to see. Some of the artists that came to mind when I was looking at your work are Red Grooms.
Okay.
Have you heard of Red Grooms?
No.
He creates like entire rooms out of cardboard that they're not hyper realist, but they're realist, and I think they're at real scale, and they're made with like crudely, not crude, but they're just like very frankly painted. And a great painter friend of mine, Tom Burkhart, is his assistant for a long time and does a lot of that, helps with the construction and does his own kind of, actually you should look at Tom Burkhart's constructions also, because he does like, all the objects in a room, a beer can, a pencil holder, chairs, tables. And there's a young artist that has shown also several times at Catherine Clark and all over, named Reniel del Rosario.
Oh yeah.
And he does these fantastic ceramic replicas of books, like art books, poetry books. A lot of them are like political and social commentary, but all kinds of objects, billboards. It's really good critical commentary on the culture. And he's just a wonderful ceramicist, and he like does parodies kind of. Actually, he also made, I was in a group show with him, and he made objects that responded to every artist in the show and packaged them like trinkets for sale in a fake gift shop that he created. So I think you would respond to that. And then Nancy and Ed Keenholtz, who as a couple worked together a lot, making spaces and very obsessed with cars. You know their work.
I have never seen it. I'm excited to look it up.
They put cars in their installations, and sometimes they have figures in them and lights and kind of like shit pouring out of the car, and they're really strong pieces from, I don't know, I guess like the 70s, 60s, 70s. And then there's a local guy named Brian Goggin who's done a lot of some public art, and he was fixated on those public utility covers in sidewalks, and he got a big public art project that's almost invisible because he kind of replicated them, but with histories of the neighborhood. So it's along Mission Street at the base of Bernal Heights, and they're in the ground everywhere, though people don't recognize them as art.
Wow, I'm gonna have to go for a walk then. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I really, really responded to the first sculpture, the chopped mannequin. And I suppose if you saw it in person, you would see the mannequin more obviously, but I liked how abstract it became. And especially after you just spoke about Guston, because it resonated with Guston, I thought. And I look forward to seeing the parking ticket quilt.
I gotta get this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a got one right here.
It's actually modeled off of one that I got outside of CCA.
Yeah. So yeah, I do relate to your crow-like affinities for collecting stuff, and wish for you to have a space big enough to have collections of things to work from. If you're that kind of person, it's really helpful to have lots of bins and things to keep your junk in, and maybe every 10 years you rotate it out of your studio and throw away a lot of things. Like,
yeah.
But then if you go to Recology, you're gonna get a lot more stuff. I think it's interesting that you and Leon both looked at Martin Wong, because his work is so poignant and your work is so different from each other, but he's just a really strong source. And for you being so interested in the urban environment, his work is really great to look at, I think. Let's see, I'm thinking about your self-portrait as a teapot. And it kind of like choked me up to see your neck bone being the handle. Was that right? Or the spout?
It's the handle, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's pretty interesting to take your self-portrait and put it into the form of a functional object. And might be interesting to keep pursuing that. I don't know, it's a strange idea. I don't think I've seen that before. And then thinking about growing up in gold country and all the stuff that must still be able to be found up there. Do you find it in the rivers or in the landscape?
A little bit of both, mostly the landscape because it was like hydraulic. I don't know all the words, but they like blasted like basically the land, and then so there's all these rocks and like places where water used to be, and just like I don't know, it's like it's mostly I guess in the landscape, not the water, but it's very rusty.
So a lot of rusted metal parts from their
Yeah. I don't have any of it anymore, unfortunately. My mom moved, but
also the stained glass work with the crushed cans, that seems very interesting. There's an artist who I think went to the Art Institute. He's a youngish artist. He's in LA now. His name is Chris Lux, Lux. And he's comes from a really strong painting background, but he's doing a lot of stained glass. And I don't know how traditionally he works with stained glass, but he's posting a lot of those right now on his Instagram. And I know I've seen, so he also makes lamps out of stained glass.
cool.
And he has like very strong San Francisco roots.
Really look that up.
So I hope you get the Recology residency. Remind me where Slab City is.
It's like out in the desert, in Southern California. It's kind of like
Side of Palm Springs.
Yeah. It's like an unofficial community.
So I bet
there's a
it's next to
culture park out there.
Salvation Mountain, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
There.
It'd be wild.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you're on a great path, and maybe don't go to grad school yet. Do some of these other things and just keep working and see why you would want to go to grad school.
Yeah. Good point.
It's very exciting. So will you also are you all in this show that's next week?
Mine opens on April 17th. So in 2 weeks-ish.
Okay. It's really cool work. It's really very unique. And I love the reflection of the San Francisco urban environment a lot. It gets so slammed, and I'm also like right in the thick of it at 16th and Mission.
Yeah.
And I collect stuff all the time, and then I look at all the people living in their environments of collected stuff. I wonder why I also collect it, but I think it shows a lot of empathy that you're looking at these surroundings and crafting, like conceiving work based on these sort of just quotidian things that are easily dismissed as not noticeable. So I like that you're really noticing them. Go forward, be bold.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tuesday, and thank you, Amy. And
You
that
guys.
brings us to the end. Thanks to all of the artists who presented today, Ben, Myrranda, Yena, Joy, Tuesday, and Leon. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing your shows in the coming weeks. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. We really appreciate
It's
you.
really
giving
a
us-
pleasure.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for being here. It's so nice to see you. Have a really nice night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.